Hello, everybody. So I come from a communist country called Canada, and I don't take for granted what you have and what is in the title of your university, liberty. What does it mean? Who can tell me? It means freedom. And you all have more freedom than anyone in any other country in the world. And so I'm going to ask a favor right now. I'm going to ask for the freedom to ask you to put your phones down because I was standing at the back and I can see about half of you are on your phones. And we're going to talk about today what is the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history. So it's important that we learn a little bit here today because unfortunately my generation has failed, my parents' generation has failed, and we have allowed arguably the worst and largest scandal in human history to affect children all over the world. And so I'm a dad of two girls. Today they're 14 and 16 years old. But for 5.5 years now, I've been on a mission to raise awareness about this child abuse scandal, this business of teaching children that they were born in the wrong body. What does that mean? Nobody can tell you because it doesn't mean anything. It's nonsense. There's no such thing as a transgender child. What does transgender mean? Nobody can tell you that. If they look at the dictionary definition, they'll tell you, well, it's someone whose gender identity is different than their sex assigned at birth. Our sex is not assigned at birth. Our sex is observed. It's not an arbitrary decision that somebody makes. And then ultimately we come down to this root word of what is gender. And the left today treat gender as though it's something separate from sex, as though it's just a feeling. And a feeling based on what? Well, we're going to get into that. So first, let me show you a little example of what I do. It's a little unconventional, but it works. So my name is Chris Elston. I'm known as Billboard Chris, and I'm traveling the country, literally hanging out on street corners and going to busy events, going to wherever the people are, just to have conversations about gender ideology, mainly the medical harm that is coming to kids when they want to switch their sex. Because we have children who are being indoctrinated either in school or primarily on social media as well, to believe that it is stereotypes that determine their sex or their gender. So overwhelmingly, it is supportive. At least I would say 9 out of 10 people support what I'm doing. People know instinctively this is wrong. We should be letting children grow up because it's not stereotypes that define who they are. If a child is gender nonconforming, we should just encourage that. That's fine. You don't need pharmaceutical drugs, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries to find your true inner self. But people understand this. People are supportive. It's just most of the supportive people are quiet. I'm just going to keep traveling the country, keep having these conversations, because I know eventually we win this battle. It's just a question of how much damage is done to children before that happens. So that was made by someone I ran into in Prince Edward Island 5 years ago. I was stuck in Canada at the time because of COVID. We weren't allowed out. And this guy just randomly came out on the street. He heard I was in town and he did this little interview and made that video. And since then, I've been to 13 other countries. When the borders opened up in November of 2021, I started coming to the US. First stop was Texas. And right away, I had so much support because there's something about the United States that's different than every other country in the world. People fight back here. And I think it goes back to how this country was formed. Because how did it form? 1776, in an act of rebellion against the king. Up in Canada, we didn't rebel. But that spirit of rebellion has stayed. That spirit of fighting back has stayed. And this is one of the things that makes the United States the greatest country in the world. But what we have going on today is something that really goes back more than 100 years ago. So back in the Weimar Republic, 1919, the first real gay rights organization opened up by a man named Magnus Hirschfeld in Berlin. And they did the first surgeries on men who wanted to be women. And the gentleman who did that first surgery, by the way, was a man named Erwin Gorbant, who went on to be the Surgeon General for the Luftwaffe, for the Nazis, and he even designed hypothermia experiments on Jews in the Dachau concentration camp, hypothermia experiments that killed them. These are the type of people who did this first monstrosity on individuals. Gender identity as a concept, as a word, as a term, did not exist until 1964 when a psychiatrist at UCLA named Robert Stoller coined this term. He worked with another sexologist, a doctor named John Money, and an individual named Harry Benjamin. Well, Harry Benjamin was friends with this individual from the Weimar Republic, Magnus Hirschfeld, so it's all connected. Harry Benjamin went on to form what's known as the Harry Benjamin International Gender Dysphoria Society, which today is called WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And it is this organization that writes what are called the standards of care used in gender clinics all across the world. But we come to this basic thing of gender identity, and I know you have all grown up in an era where this is pushed in our media, in our schools, in academia. It's all throughout the culture. I'm sure you know people who have been affected by this, not as much because you grew up in a Christian household most likely, and you go to a Christian university. But this is not a fad like bell-bottoms or haircuts. This is something pushed by leftist governments, funded by leftist governments who send billions of dollars to NGOs, who send that money all around the world. It's pushed by intergovernmental bodies like the UN, where I'm going to be next week, actually. It's the Commission on the Status of Women, and a lot of them there don't know what a woman is, so I'm going to ask a few of them and speak at a few events. But we have this idea permeating our culture that we have gender identities. And what is it? Well, let's look at what the experts have to say. This next slide is, oh, that's how I got started as Billboard Chris, by the way. I put up a billboard that said, "I love J.K. Rowling," because in Edinburgh, Scotland, a woman had put up that sign that said the same thing, and the government took it down, citing it, saying that it was hate speech. Hate speech to love the world's greatest children's author, and I got tired of our speech coming under attack, so I put up a huge billboard that said the same thing. It also lasted just a day in Vancouver, because a Vancouver City Councillor said once again it was hate speech. So then I put up a whole bunch throughout the U.S., San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Utah, all throughout the metro here in D.C., and Times Square. And so that was where my original nickname came from. I didn't give it to myself. You're not supposed to do that. But at the end of September, I'd run out of money, and I had this vision to start millions of conversations because I knew when enough people learned about what was going on that we would put a stop to this abuse. And so I had signs made, and I wear them, and I know I look ridiculous, but for some reason I get some respect. And I have conversations, and I air those conversations online, and they get seen a whole lot today, and I've helped to wake a few people up. But this here is the genderbread person. Can't give it a gingerbread man name because that would be gendering the poor fellow. But it defines right on there what your gender identity is. And I know it's hard to read from where you sit, but it says your gender identity is based on your personality, your job, hobbies, likes and dislikes, roles in society, and expectations upon you. What does your job have to do with your gender? It's kind of ridiculous. Your hobbies? Are we to tell a little boy who doesn't like playing football and maybe wants to bake with his mom or read poetry that he's a girl? Are we going to tell our girls who like playing football, who like playing sports with the boys, who climb trees and play in the dirt and don't want to wear dresses, are they now on the male end of the spectrum? That's absurd. How many girls here were tomboys growing up? There you go. It's fun. But this whole theory, which has captured the entire Western world, hinges on these ridiculous stereotypes. Now, I don't want you to take my word for it or just one resource produced by an activist. Let's listen to the experts. This next video is a doctor at Boston Children's Hospital, which at the time I leaked out these videos, I found these videos and I posted them and they went incredibly viral. There were a whole bunch of them. And this woman, her name is Dr. Jeremy Carswell. She's going to tell us what it is to be a transgender child.
A child will often know that they are transgender from the moment that they have any ability to express themselves, and parents will often tell us this. We have parents who tell us that their kids, they knew from the minute they were born practically. And actions like refusing to get a haircut or standing to urinate, trying to stand to urinate, refusing to stand to urinate, trying on siblings' clothing, playing with the quote opposite gender toys, things like that. There is more and more a group of adolescents that we are seeing that really are coming to the realization that they might be trans or gender diverse a little bit later on in their life. So what we're seeing from them is that they always sort of knew something was maybe off and didn't have the understanding to know that they might be trans or have a different gender identity than the one they had been assigned. So that is a growing population that we are seeing, and that's being recognized as being trans and able to be treated.
Ladies, if you tried to pee standing up at any point in your life, you might be transgender. If you played with the opposite gender toys, you might be transgender. If you tried on a sibling's clothing, you might be transgender. Newsflash, if a little boy has 3 big sisters, they're going to play dress up with their little brother. This is called play. But it's just these ridiculous stereotypes. My clicker doesn't seem to work.
So most of the patients that we have in the GEMS clinic actually know their gender, usually around the age of puberty, but a good portion of children do know as early as seemingly from the womb, and they will usually express their gender identity as very young children, some as soon as they can talk.
Seemingly from the womb. These children know they're transgender. Babies from the womb. Are there transgender fetuses, I wonder? If so, this is how you win the pro-life argument with a Democrat. Special class. This is all insane. But these are the top doctors at the top pediatric hospital in the country. And it's all across the world. I've got so many videos like this I could show you, but we don't have the time today. So I'm going to skip forward a few slides here. And this is the story of a young woman I ran into at UCLA. Her name is Clementine. It's a 6-minute video. It pretty much sums this whole thing up perfectly.
Gender affirming his.
But it's important you hear the stories from them. Here we go. Yeah, come on in. What's your name?
My name's Clementine.
Nice to meet you.
I've actually seen your stuff online, and I'm a huge fan. I was on puberty blockers. I started when I was 12, and I was on testosterone from 14 to 17, and I got top surgery at 17. Totally messed my life up. So I just want to say you're doing a good thing.
Wow.
I can't believe people disagree with you on this. As a former child transitioner, I'm just appalled that people have anything to question you about. So I salute you.
I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. I'm glad you are through it now. Thank you so much for speaking up. That's extremely valuable because a lot of people are afraid to.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we have a little conversation about it?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, come on in this way just a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hi.
So, your name again?
My name's Clementine.
Clementine. So Clementine went on puberty blockers at what age?
12.
And you detransitioned at?
I detransitioned earlier this year, actually, but I had been going off testosterone since about 17 because it gave me psychosis.
When did they put you on testosterone?
I was 13.
Wow. And when did you have a double mastectomy?
I had a double mastectomy at 14. I'm currently going through the process of getting reconstructive surgery, and it was harder to get that approved. I actually wasn't able to get it approved by my insurance.
Right.
But it was much harder to get surgery for that than it was to actually get the original top surgery procedure.
For everyone watching this who says this isn't happening, well, it happened to Clementine. At 14, a double mastectomy, puberty blockers at 12, testosterone at 13. How old are you now?
I'm 20 now. I just turned 20.
Have you ever talked to anyone about suing?
I can't disclose what's going on, but yeah, it's...
Okay, because I'm here to help you find someone if you need someone.
Yeah, I've spoken... Do you know Campbell Miller Payne?
I do.
I've talked to them a bunch.
Fantastic. So Campbell Miller Payne is a law firm, 4 dads in Texas, who all left their previous law firms and started a new one just to sue for kids and young people like Clementine who've been harmed by this madness. And these are great guys. They could have done anything to make a bunch of money, but they started a law firm. They left all their previous firms. They have 18 kids between them, and they're going to cause a lot of waves. I know some good lawsuits coming too, which we aren't allowed to announce yet.
Yeah, I really hope so.
That's one of the way out of this mess we've gotten into.
I don't know how a child could consent to the loss of their fertility.
Yeah.
Children can't conceptualize that, and I think people don't understand that.
So what got you into this in the first place?
I was sexually abused as a child, and that was totally ignored, but I started having a lot of negative feelings about my body around puberty, and I was egged on by some guidance counselors that I might be transgender, and I later decided that I was really a boy and my life would be so much easier because of all this abuse that I had experienced because of being a woman, and I totally just rejected womanhood because I thought that all that it meant for me was pain. Yeah. That's kind of how I got there, but
And what got
getting
you out?
out of it, getting out of it was a really difficult process for me, but mostly it was just getting the right therapy. I went to DBT therapy, and we never discussed my gender. We only discussed my sexual abuse, and after I dealt with that, I realized I didn't want to do this anymore, and the loss of my fertility and my body just started to really sink in, and I realized, like, oh my God, I've built this entire persona around misogyny.
Do you know for sure that you've lost your fertility?
I'm not 100% sure,
Okay.
but
you were on
I'm not the
testosterone
most
for
hopeful.
4
I never
years.
went through female puberty, so yeah.
Right. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for speaking up.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
extremely
for
brave.
speaking to me.
It's extremely powerful. I'm so sorry what was done to you, but this is going to help other people not.
I'm so glad
To
you're
fall
doing
down
what you're
this
doing.
rabbit hole.
Keep going.
One last question, and just come in a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Before you started on the puberty blockers, you've just shared with me this sexual abuse that happened to you before you started on those.
Yeah.
Did anyone ask you about that?
No, not was that brought up once during the meeting. I was only asked, do I like hanging out with boys? Do I get fit in better with boys? What kind of things am I into? Just really surface level questions. And I was prescribed puberty blockers 30 minutes into my appointment after being out for 4 months.
First appointment
Yes.
with.
Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy at Los Angeles Children's Hospital.
All right, so I cut that a little short. Johanna Olson Kennedy is one of the worst ghouls doing this to children in California, but fortunately, thanks to the Trump administration, the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles Gender Clinic has recently shut down. Yes. That particular doctor has moved her practice up north. But another thing Clementine mentions here is not once was she even asked about her sexual abuse. The doctors had no idea. They knew nothing about her. This doctor had known her for half an hour. We've been here longer than half an hour. I've been sat next to Alyssa here, who I met this morning. I've known her for more than half an hour, and I still basically know nothing about her. Imagine giving a child a chemical castration drug that will take away their fertility forever in half an hour. Her parents were separated from her in that first meeting, and they were separately told they could have a dead daughter or a live son. Literally. This is like a script that all of these gender doctors use all across the world. Because the only way you can justify this child abuse is to say that kids are going to die if we don't do it. So the number one lie heard every time is that kids will kill themselves if we don't transition them. And it's not true. Chase Strangio, a lawyer for the ACLU, a woman pretending to be a man, in December of 2024, before the Supreme Court even admitted this, she finally admitted that actually completed suicides, she said, are very rare. And this whole time it's suicidal ideation they were talking about. Well, yes, obviously when a child ends up in a gender clinic wanting to change their sex, there's going to be higher suicidal ideation because something's wrong. And we know from all the systematic reviews that have ever been done in the world, these are the gold standard for medicine, where they look at all the peer-reviewed reports, all of the scientific literature. And these reviews have been done now in Finland, Sweden, England, the United States, and even in Canada. They've all come to the same conclusion. There's absolutely no evidence this is helping kids. So what are we doing? Why are we telling children they're born in the wrong bodies? This is psychological abuse. So you've got a girl like Clementine who was sexually abused at the age of 7, not just a one-time thing. Now instead of doing what many girls would do, which is to just hide their body and bury themselves in hoodies and baggy pants, now they can say they're boys. And they're getting double mastectomies as young as 12 years old in the United States of America. We know this from insurance data. We know this from admissions from these clinicians on video. I have a woman on video from Kaiser Permanente in Oakland, California, admitting they've done this to 12-year-olds. All because of this lie. It's one of the greatest deceptions ever told. the positive message we should be sending. And when you're messaging on this and you're talking to people about this, you need to stress the positivity. Because when you complain about something, you might get a lot of complainers following you on social media. But if you want to build a movement and you want to actually create change in the world, you need to have something positive behind it. Otherwise, people aren't going to follow. And the positive message and the true message is that children are beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed. That there's no right or wrong way to be a girl or a boy. The most radical leftist can't disagree with you. I've had tens of thousands of conversations now on the streets for over 5.5 years. I've been put in jail 3 times. I was recently put in jail in Brussels last year after speaking at the European Parliament. I went out on the street, we were getting harassed, so we called the police. They decided we were the problem, told me to take off my signs and leave, and I refused. So I was put in jail, strip searched, all that. No charges. And it's funny, as I was getting strip searched, I'm standing there in my underwear talking to this jail guard, and he says to me, "So are you like Charlie Kirk?" And I say that to honor Charlie Kirk, because even in Brussels, where they don't speak English, they knew about Charlie, and they knew the impact he was having. And Charlie did all this in 10 years. He wasn't a college grad. He was a man with a mission. He was a man with a vision, and he was a man with a purpose. And when you live a purpose-driven life, you're going to succeed. If you go into some field or some endeavor that you don't love and you don't have passion for it, I'm going to give you a piece of advice right now in life. Get out, because it's not right for you. I did things that I wasn't totally passionate about for a long time because I got stuck in it. I was a financial advisor, and you can make a lot of money in that, and I like that I have to pay attention to everything going on in the world. But it wasn't until I quit my real job and went out on the street to get punched in the face by Antifa that I actually found my purpose in life. I've had my arm broken. I've been assaulted 40-odd times. But to be honest, the type of men who have a problem with me aren't the type you need to worry about physically, so it's not as scary as you might think. And at the age of 44, when I started this campaign, I'm now having the time of my life, even though I look ridiculous like that. But I get about 1 billion views per year now, and I'm speaking at parliaments around the world, and we have turned this conversation, something that people were afraid to talk about 5 years ago. We're probably only 5 men of any prominence online were speaking about it at all. It's now the #1 topic in the culture wars. It was the single most important issue for swing voters in the presidential election. And we have a responsibility to speak up, because as I said, this isn't a fad that's just going to disappear on its own. It's still being funded and pushed by governments and NGOs around the world. And as long as it's pushed into our children's classrooms and into academia, it's going to remain. So we need to get educated about it so we can speak about it. Now, real quick, who are these kids that end up at these gender clinics? These are children who on average have 5 or more mental health comorbidities. We know this from the systematic review in England. 70% of the children didn't have 1 or 2 problems. They had 5 or more other mental health comorbidities. Autism is extremely prevalent. 35% had moderate to severe autism. That doesn't include the mild cases. It goes way above. These kids have had sexual abuse in a majority of cases, ADHD, trauma, abuse. Parents are 10 times as likely to be sex offenders. Kids in state care are way overrepresented, so it's all the struggling kids. And what's being done is they're just being affirmed that they were born wrong. And that's the message we have to stop. So I'm going to skip through a whole lot of this.
The second,
That is the president of
foul
WPATH, who admitted that none of the boys who started on puberty blockers as adults have ever been able to have an orgasm. And I'm sorry if this gets a little graphic, but they're destroying the future sexual function of children when they're 10, 11 years old. Because puberty blockers are given at Tanner stage 2, which is the beginning of puberty. That's the scientific term. For the very beginning, before your secondary sex characteristics start to develop. And the idea is to keep them looking neutral so that they can pass better as the opposite sex when they grow up. This is total and utter madness. The #1 lie is they say say you're suicidal to get the drugs you want. And the good news is that we have so much information out there now. We have so many systematic reviews that have been done. We have the president speaking out against this. We have the DOJ fighting this. The Federal Trade Commission is looking into fraudulent trade practices, because even in states where this has been banned, what happens is the doctors change the insurance coding. So instead of submitting an insurance claim for a double mastectomy for gender dysphoria, they'll just call it a chest reduction. Or instead of submitting an insurance claim for puberty blockers for gender dysphoria, they'll say that the child has an endocrine disorder. They're committing fraud because the people who push this are essentially cult members. This is like the world's biggest cult that has captured our society, teaching not what God taught in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis 1:27, male and female, he created them, teaching that you can be anything you want, that you can be either, you can be both. And it's the vulnerable kids getting caught. So what's happened is a couple of years ago, from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, a lot of leaked documents and videos came out. That's been very helpful. And I'm just going to read you quickly from a few of these notes that were leaked from these doctors. This is the president admitting that these children can never have any sexual function later in life and that they're being sterilized. This is a young woman who, after 8 to 10 years of testosterone, developed hepatocarcinomas. This is liver cancer because of the testosterone. Malnutrition, eating disorders are very common. This one's fascinating. So trauma is common among trans clients. But I'm interested, this doctor says, to find that several of my clients met criteria for dissociative disorders or other specified dissociative disorder. This is what used to be called multiple personality disorder. And this doctor says here, has there been any difficulty with the system agreeing to transition them medically, especially given that not all the alters have the same gender identity? Not all the alternate personalities have the same gender identity. They still want to transition these people. They're transitioning nonverbal autistic kids. This is someone with schizophrenia. They might be ready for surgery, it says. It's just a matter of what you see concerns are. Schizophrenia, they're having a break with reality. They're hearing things. They're delusional. They're transitioning them. In our schools today, it is policy. Now, there was good news this week, but it is still policy in many states, every blue state for sure, that they will keep secrets from parents when a child is identifying as trans at school. They'll give the kid a new name, new pronouns, and hide it from parents. Now, thankfully, Gavin Newsom just lost a lawsuit on this week. The Supreme Court ruled that they can't ban school districts from informing parents, and they in fact ruled that parents have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing and education of their children, so they have to inform parents now. So we are winning slowly, but we have so many people fighting against us. And the problem is, if Democrats get elected again, a lot of these executive orders are going to immediately be rescinded, and this fight's going to come right back full steam. The good news is we're winning all over the world. We've had all these systematic reviews revealing none of this is helping kids. That's helpful. These are a bunch of bad, mean people. I'll skip all that. The good news is we're winning. This picture here is from a few years ago in Ottawa. I went to that street that had a few schools on it back in 2021, and I was mobbed by 300 people. It was 300 against 1. I went back there 2 years later with 500 friends. So that's indicative of the growth we've had in awareness. And in the United States, we've had 26 or 27 states ban this, and even in all those blue states, gender clinics are shutting down thanks to the Trump administration. Yes. I sued the Australian government last year because they tried to censor me. They told me I was committing cyber abuse by calling a woman a woman. Elon Musk also sued. He had his lawyers, I had mine. I was backed by ADF International, which is a fabulous organization some of you should go intern or work for. But we won that.
Thank you.
My journeys have taken me to the UN, to the European Parliament a couple times, to the White House a few times. I tweeted a couple years ago, lawsuits are coming, and the first lawsuit just 2 or 3 weeks ago finally settled, and a young woman just won $2 million in a very historic lawsuit. 30 more lawsuits are in process, and what this is going to do has caused the insurance companies who insure these doctors to stop funding these practices. So one step at a time, one conversation at a time, we're winning this battle. And my request and encouragement for all of you is to have these conversations when you have the opportunity, because it's just from person to person this spreads. It wasn't politicians ever leading the way on this. It was primarily parents, but it was individuals who took it upon themselves to create awareness, come what may. Because in this life, we have to have courage. We've always had to have courage. The world's always going to be full of evil. Today in academia, 25% of professors say they're either socialist or full-on Marxist, and about 98% of them would say that they're leftists. So the entire system is working against truth. But you have here in this room a small army of truth tellers, and I know a lot of you are going to go out into this world and do great things. So I just want to thank you so much for hosting me today. It's been my pleasure.